Hello, my fellow Hulk fans. It is Jerry Rasco here with you again for the second episode of our new series featuring the art of the Incredible Hulk. So we are going to be looking at, as I called it, a history in Gamma. So this is alongside the same kind of series that I do with the Amazing Spider-Man. So if you're a subscriber to the channel, you're probably familiar with that. If you're new here and you're not familiar with that series, please check out the playlist. I think you'll really enjoy this series I've done with the Amazing Spider-Man. I go all the way back to Amazing Fantasy 15 and review the artwork for each edition, each issue, and we are up into the 50s. I've started this new series last week with the Incredible Hulk, and we're going to be doing the same thing throughout the series here too. So last week we looked at the Incredible Hulk #1, which was truly a milestone as far as characters being introduced to the Marvel universe. We go all the way back to 1962, so there's a lot of stuff that just the style of the comic, the storytelling, all these things are reflective of the time. And today we're going to look at the Incredible Hulk, which features a lot of changes and a very interesting art matchup, or mashup, I guess, if you will. And I'm really excited to check it out with you. So again, don't forget, subscribe to the channel, because once we reach 1,000 subscribers, that is the goal for 2026, 1,000 subscribers. When we get there, we are going to be giving away free art to one lucky subscriber. So let me show you. There are two pieces of art that we will be giving away. First, again, if you're a fan of the Amazing Spider-Man series I do, you've seen this quite a bit. This is my 11x17 Spider-Man art by yours truly, original piece that will be given away free to the 1,000 one lucky subscriber when we reach to 1,000. So not necessarily the 1,000th subscriber, but we'll randomly draw one subscriber when we get to that number, and they will win this. And to celebrate the kickoff of this new show, The Incredible Hulk, we're going to give away this Hulk piece as well. So you've got two chances, or like not two chances, but you have a chance to win two pieces of art, original art of both Spider-Man and the Hulk. So hopefully that entices you. If you're not already a subscriber, please think about subscribing to the channel. It's just a click, and it helps me out quite a bit. So that all said, let's head over to the comic. Let's check out the Incredible Hulk #2. Okay, so here we have the cover to the Incredible Hulk #2, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. Obviously, the green elephant in the room is that the Hulk is now green, and we have switched over from the gray to this green coloring, and we're going to be doing looking at a green Hulk for quite some time. Again, I think I mentioned it before. There are a number of different stories to explain why the change. Some folks have said, hey, the coloring of the gray was inconsistent. Again, remember, this is the early 60s, 4-color printing. So getting a consistent shade of gray would be tough, because it's a combination of black and white dots to make it. So if the space of the dots changes, the size of the dots change, or the amount, the ratio changes, your character's tone and stuff is going to change a lot. So one story I've heard is that the green is a lot easier to be consistent with, and so they went to green. Somebody else has stated, I've seen this as well, that there was a printer issue, so that there's something about a broken printer, and so they moved to green. To me, I don't buy that story as much, because as you can see on the cover here, there was gray, and we're going to see gray in the book. So I don't know that the broken printer story holds a lot of water, but I don't have proof either way. Then of course you just have the fact that the Hulk is he's definitely not a hero. I mean, he is and he isn't. So we'll see in this story, like, the original persona of this Hulk is not a super heroic character, and so coloring him in a secondary color, blue and yellow being primary, green being your secondary, of mixing the two, puts us in a stage where we see him potentially as an anti-hero, I guess might be the word to use. Certainly more monstrous, and it does invoke kind of a Frankenstein, because we are conditioned to thinking of, yes, it's in black and white, but we've all seen pictures, toys, costumes, models, etc., of the Boris Karloff green Frankenstein. And I think the green color helps that as well. So maybe it's the truth is somewhere in the middle of all those stories. I don't know for sure, but I tend to believe probably the green coloring is easier, and it just dovetails well into this fits this character that we're trying to portray. Overall, though, the composition is very nice. You've got these cool aliens, new aliens, the Toadmen, and them being surprised by the Hulk. As I always tell everybody, this is a scanned PDF copy of the original comic. So this is what it would have looked like in 1962 when this was published. So you're going to see the advertisements, the wear and tear of the pages, the original coloring style, all of that kind of stuff is all here in the original format. Thanks to Marvel Comics scanning copies of every issue back in 2007. This is written by Stan Lee, penciled by Jack Kirby, and inked by Steve Ditko. So again, if you're a fan of the channel and you're a fan of my other series, Steve Ditko certainly should ring a bell to you. Steve Ditko being the artist and co-creator of Spider-Man. So here's somebody who's known as a penciler and someone who inked his own work, actually inking over Jack Kirby and his pencils. So it happened a few times. It happened in there's a backup story in an issue of Spider-Man. We saw that, and a few other places here and there. But I think overall, this is a fairly rare and very special combination of these two artists, primarily known as storytellers, pencilers, creators in their own right. And here is Steve Ditko doing the inking job over Jack. So very exciting to see how that differs from the previous issue. Again, obviously, we are talking about green. So the green is a big deal. Also, just in general, the design of the Hulk is slightly different. He's become more monstrous from issue 1 to issue 2. Issue 1, he looked more like a gray guy, a big gray guy with sort of a slightly bigger forehead. But we've really leaned into the flat head, the distance between the nose and the lip, bringing this part down, making that head much more square, how dark around the eyes it is. Now, whether that's just inking by Steve Ditko or a design change, we'll see as the series goes on, but definitely playing more into the Frankenstein look than we did before. If you put a couple of bolts on his neck, this imagery would be very Frankenstein-y. But it really works for the character. The other thing, of course, here is in this introductory page, we see the Hulk in purple. Why is that so important? So we're talking color here. And again, you're making a commitment to changing your character to green. So one of the things that you can do to make your character bold, to make your character pop from the page, is you put them in complementary colors to one another. So typically you would have green and red. Purple is a offshoot of red because purple is made from red and blue. So you have two secondary colors, but green and purple go great together. So, if green and red are complementary to one another, green and purple are not far off. And this is a terrific combination of colors for characters. You see it over and over and over in comics, and because it works. So here we see a real commitment to the purple and green that becomes a staple of the Incredible Hulk. So he's on a rampage. Again, I really like the art. I love the inking. I'm sorry, I zoomed in and then I zoomed back out. Let's zoom back into this face because it is phenomenal. I really like all of the little feathering or rendering hatch marks, if you will, off of the shadows. It blends those shadows out, but it also adds sort of a wrinkly, textured look to the Hulk's face, as well as, the same kind of rendering hatch marks on the musculature. I think is terrific. Really, really good. Big wrinkles in the forehead. Again, just a very monster Frankenstein-y look. And this comic, certainly even more so than Spider-Man, blends horror, monster, and sci-fi in a way that other comics don't necessarily. So this is really good. Now the Hulk is sort of rampaging through a town. People are coming to see if they can stop him, etc. But what I find very interesting here is throughout this opening sequence, until we really get to this flashback, you don't see the Hulk, other than the splash page here, really lit up. We see him in shadow. We see just an arm holding a big, branch. We see shadow again. We see a close-up and a fist as the car strikes him. We see just his head and arm as people, I guess marshals or the police are trying to hold him down. Again, shadows, and his arm is obscuring his face as he rips a telephone pole off. Here we see just the face and then shadows. So again, it reminds me of a very classic monster movie kind of trope. Less is more. So, when you think back of classic horror or monster movies, one of the greatest examples is Jaws. And in reality, if you look at how much screen time the shark is actually visible on screen, it's very little. And so by doing this, it's almost like this opening sequence, the Hulk is viewed through the eyes of the people in this town, where people just sort of get glimpses of this big monster. They talk about hearing him stomping, but not a giant, clear, highly defined image. I think that's really good. The other thing I love here is this face behind the door. Again, not for me what I would think of as a traditional Jack Kirby face. The way that the eye is portrayed with a lot of this really nice shading and rendering around it. Maybe the fingers, kind of that flat squared off finger is a very Jack Kirby trademark, but this eyeball to me is just a great example of the mixture of the two. You have your Jack Kirby structure and storytelling, wonderful framing of the door. You see the fear on this face, but then you have this beautiful rendering, which really takes it to the next level. So that's a perfect example of how these two blend together. Another great Hulk face down here, retelling the origin, and interesting. So, could this be considered the first retcon in comics, where you have, or at least Marvel comics, where according to this flashback of his origin story, he was always green, as opposed to gray and then became green. Later, we know that the gray Hulk is part of the mythos, makes its return much, much later. But interesting that right now in this, again, as they retell this origin, they could have had him green or gray and turn green the next issue. No, he's just green to start with. So very interesting there. Again, just, a rehash of the origin that we saw last week and we've all seen. I do want to just point this out again. I'm not going to go over it throughout the whole issue, but in this opening sequence, the note that I took said that how the inks are, the term I used, dark and lush. So really, you have some beautiful ink work on the rendering, on the shading. It's not just flat black. You're hatching out from the black out to the light source to provide a transition from complete dark to complete light. Stuff like this. The rendering on the back of the arms here is terrific. This Hulk image down at the bottom, awesome stuff. So really, really nice combo, like I said, of inking. So then we cut back to today and the Toadmen of Croak, which I think is terrific. Very, very funny stuff. They are some aliens that are set their sights on conquering the Earth. And their technology is all based on magnetism. So it tells me like magnetism, one, can apparently do anything in these stories. It is not just, you know, literally, they use magnetic powers to find the smartest person on Earth, which, of course, in this case is Dr. Bruce Banner. I don't know how magnets can do that, but okay. I love the design of the ships, though. These sort of frog-eyed ships. So these are the Toadmen, and they have sort of froggy toad squat spaceships with these bulges on the top like frog eyes. I think that is terrific. Very, very cute stuff. Let's see. We see General Ross and Betty Ross. Sorry, Betty Brant is Spider-Man. So Thunderbolt Ross and his daughter Betty, they come to see Bruce, and of course we get the thing where Ross doesn't like him because he's not a soldier, he's not a big tough guy. He and Rick are off to do some research, and so General Ross doesn't like him. I noted in the first issue, Ross is in a blue uniform, which would typically indicate Air Force. Here he is in a green Army uniform. And I think that does go back and forth quite a bit. Sometimes I think primarily he is known as an Army general. However, sometimes it goes back and forth between the Air Force uniform and the Army uniform. So Rick and Doc Banner go to a cave which leads underneath a nearby lake. And they realize that it's a giant sort of like, I guess, granite outcropping that they can use as a base to trap the Hulk at night so that he can't hurt anybody. So Dr. Banner has built this giant door that's 10 feet thick that he can swing into place, and they can lock the Hulk in. The only thing I didn't understand here, this visual image was confusing to me. So all they're telling you is they have a door. They have a way to balance it so it can swing shut easily. You don't have to be super strong to do it, but once it's locked in, it's locked in. The only thing I didn't understand is, so there's this giant like piston or ramrod that would push the door into place, and you can see that's what's happening. So here it's very thick, and then the next time we see it, the edge is much thinner, so it's been pushed in considerably. I don't understand what this coupling is, though. Wouldn't just this bolted on plate just continue to push? So they're clearly, Jack Kirby drew something as far as a technology that was supposed to do something. I don't know what it does, but it just didn't really get explained in any way. So I don't understand what that is. I was a little confused, but in the grand scheme of things, we just move on. It doesn't really matter. Then all of a sudden, the characters here get sucked against the wall with magnetism. So as I said, magnetism can do anything. So even though the human body is technically non-ferrous, you take a magnet, unless you have a metal plate or something in you, steel inside you, you can't typically stick magnets to your own body. It doesn't work that way. But the magnet powers of the Toadmen pin these guys against the wall, and then they use them to float them through space. So one of the things we're noting here is that this break of chapters. And again, so I had speculated, like, was this because the story was originally supposed to be broken up into an anthology book? And I think that certainly was the case with like Spider-Man #1. So Spider-Man, of course, started in Amazing Fantasy, which was an anthology book. And when you read Spider-Man #1, the story is broken into chapters like this for the same reason that it was supposed to be printed in Amazing Fantasy. But Amazing Fantasy got canceled, and Spider-Man was such a hit, they just rolled it into Spider-Man #1. My good friend of the channel, a friend of mine, Nick Caputo, he chimed in on our last video and said that this was just sort of a thing, and it might have just been the style of writing. Whether this was designed to be broken up or reprinted maybe in magazine or something like that, I don't know. But that this was very commonplace at the time for things like monster comics and a format that Stan Lee was very familiar with. And so maybe that's just how he wrote, was I'm going to write it in little itty bitty chapters, and that's how it gets illustrated. The beauty of it is it gives us this lovely splash page right in the middle of the story, which is great. And it's very good. The lighting is very nice. You have this real nice shadow. So you have a bright light source from the gun, the shadow of Bruce on the wall, the shading of the tunnel behind them is very nice. And then the shadows on the Toadmen themselves are very good. So I like the lighting. I would have liked to see a little more ground shadow. That would have helped to really give the Toadmen sense of weight, like they're standing on a surface. Here it's very, very flat. So if the light is coming from above, so his arm's casting a shadow under him, the light is coming from Dr. Banner, basically, this magnetic ray, right? So his body is casting a shadow on his arm. The lower part of his leg is in shadow. Then there should be a shadow stretching out away from the light source. Even if you have double light source, okay, then the shadow is going to stretch away from both of them. So there's a way to do it, and I think it would have really helped ground the figures. They go off into space, and the Toadmen are like, "You're going to help us. You're going to help us capture the Earth or take over the Earth. And if you don't, we'll use all our magnetic powers to disrupt. And this is what we can do. Cities can fly away. We'll suck all your oceans out. We'll use our magnetic force to glue everybody's feet to the ground somehow." Again, even though things like leather shoes are not magnetic. Okay. And, so Rick Jones, of course, is, Doc Banner's personal hype man. So the aliens are like, all right, I'm done with this. So they kindly eject him from the spaceship in a plastic escape pod where he lands safely on Earth. If you want to conquer the planet and you're willing to use things, magnetic powers, to suck all the ocean off the planet or throw cities into outer space, who cares about this kid? Why are you sending him to Earth safely? Again, very silly storytelling, but obviously we don't, in the time a kid's comic, we don't want to kill a character off. So Rick Jones gets to Earth safely. However, because they are out in space, as they're orbiting the Earth, they get to the night side, and Doc Banner changes into the Hulk. And this Hulk face down here is awesome. So is the one on the next page. We'll get to a couple of those too, but this one right here is amazing. I look at it, I see Art Adams. I see probably some Neil Adams. There's some just terrific stuff here that obviously influenced many, many other artists. Terrific. So looking up at a human face is difficult. Looking up at a human face that is not proportioned like a traditional human face, right? So the Hulk, the distance between his eyes and nose is very, very small. His forehead is going to be very big. That jowl, the lip, chin area is going to be very, very large. But you tip that head back so the ears are lowered. So his, instead of being even with his eyebrows, the ears are lowered. That's that perspective of tipping your head back. The eyes are higher. You see the dark shadowed under eyebrow, which is awesome, and under the nose, under the lip as well. So if the light's coming down from above, underneath that top lip is going to be dark. This is awesome. The only complaint I have is that the fist, I get why you have it. The Hulk is angry. And so this is a great way to show he's angry. But, if you could see me, hang on, I'll go back to me real quick and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if you see me and I'm looking up at the camera and I'm making a fist, see how my fist is raised up. For you to see the fist at the Hulk's angle like that, where you can see his face up and the top of his fist, his hand has to be bent like this, which is actually kind of painful. So I would say the perspective or the orientation of that hand should be different. It should be more up here. We should start to see some of the bottom of the fist instead of the top of the fist. It's a minor thing. It doesn't change the fact that I love that face a ton. It's just one of those things where sometimes you don't even need it. I don't even need the fist. I could just have the top couple fingers maybe here, so it's close to the page, but I really don't need it this high up on the page to show that he's mad and gritting his teeth and angry. I do want to point something else out. Trying to see, where do I have it? I know I put it on my notes somewhere here. Where is it? Oh, actually I had it way at the top. So as we go through let's go back. So yeah, this face is phenomenal, even with the fist. As we go through here, one of the things to look at is how many times something, a vehicle or a person, this arm, this foot, the tires of the car, are on the bottom panel, on the bottom panel border, which is a big mistake. So like right here, for example, you have this overlap, and yes, the foot should be a little bit under the panel, but it's pretty close to the toe to where it looks like it's standing on the bottom panel, and so are those tires, which means if this is on the bottom panel and this is on the bottom panel, they are both at the same level, even though they're overlapping, which means this guy in orange is floating in space, or this car is tiny. So that is somewhat problematic. Here, when you have this car and the tires resting on the panel, it defeats the illusion that this is a three-dimensional object. All of a sudden, it's very flat in space because it is at the same plane of distance as that panel border. If you overlap it more, or you have the car off the border, now we're looking through a frame and everything inside is away from us. And that's the beauty of the panel borders with comics. So in this example here, you have Rick and Doc Banner standing on the bottom panel. Again, it just flattens things out big time. Same down here. So just something to watch throughout this issue. As Dr. Banner changes into the Hulk, again, he's standing on the border of the panel. All it does is remove the illusion of depth, that we're looking through something, a window, a frame, whatever you want to call it, a viewfinder, into a world that's happening behind the page. Now all of a sudden the paper is the surface and this guy's sitting on the surface. So it's something to be cognizant of. It's something to be aware of if you are an artist. If you are trying to create comics, stay away from that. Don't have your stuff, your imagery land or rest on those bottom panels. It's not your horizon line. It's a frame, a viewfinder into a world that's happening behind the paper. I also said on this other page that there were some good faces. Yeah, these are awesome. So this one here, the Hulk using a gun. So he picks up the Toadman's gun, takes it away from this guy, aims it, and shoots back at them and knocks them down. How crazy is this, too? The eyes being the only thing white, not the teeth, not the gun, just the eyes in this color where the Hulk is sort of an orange, the background is a reddish tone, so they don't blend together, but they're going to wash out, and these eyes, these malevolent eyes, really pop out the way they're heavily shaded. Like I said, the Hulk's not, in this issue, he's not a hero. He's maybe an unknowing hero, but he's not doing this altruistically because he has to save the Earth. He's doing this because these guys shot at him and he's mad, and now he's going to take it out on him. And then here he's like, man, look at these weapons. If I get this ship, like, I could take over. I'll be in charge. So again, not altruistic. The Hulk is not here to like, oh, I have to save the Earth because the Hulk loves the Earth. No, the Hulk is like, ooh, I could take over. So this persona still at this point, he's not the dumb Hulk. He's not even a super smart Hulk. He's just sort of he's an opportunist. He's a schemer. He is not a good guy. But the rendering here is terrific. Again, going from a dark, solid black shadow under the cheekbones, and how do you transition from all black to, in this case, color would be, bright light. You use these rendering lines, these feathering lines, to transition from dark to light. And this is an awesome job of doing that here on the lips, underneath the jawline, from the dark of the shoulder down. So again, it fades out. And so that's your transition from shadow to light. Beautiful stuff. And again, great. Maybe this is another reason. This is another really good reason why you might want to change from gray to green, because look at how these white eyes pop out of the Hulk's face. So if he was gray, white on gray isn't going to be as stark or as shocking. But when you have this dark black with the green around it, the eyes really pop out well. Okay, so the military detects the spaceship and shoots it down with missiles. It crashes. It's not destroyed. It crashes to Earth, and the people survive. So the army goes to see what's going on. Now we have another chapter break. Again, back to the splash page, which has some really nice stuff here. Obviously, you're trying to, for half a second, who's coming out? Is it the Hulk? No, it's Dr. Banner. But you shade the face so that, in theory, the reader's not 100% sure until you look to the next panel and go, it's Dr. Bruce Banner. Great overlapping here, again, to create nice depth. And you notice, again, sometimes simple coloring really works. The warmer the colors are, the closer they are to us, and then sort of the cooler as they drift back. So you have your red General Ross, and this soldier, an orange soldier here, and then a yellow banner there, overlapping with the smoke. And then to have the ship and everything around it blue helps the figures pop off really well. We're not confusing any of the figure work with any of the broken machinery from the crashed spaceship. And the curling, again, overlapping smoke. So there's some debris that's in front of it, and then it comes out the hole and it goes in front of the ship. That's a really great way, an easy way to, again, show depth and space. The surviving Toadmen escape underground using their magnetic weapons to tunnel away under the ship, so the army guys cannot catch them. And then they trigger to the king that everybody should, the entire Toadman fleet should attack the Earth. So here we have Dr. Banner is locked up in prison because they believe of course, General Ross hates him. General Ross and Bruce Banner have a J. Jonah Jameson Spider-Man relationship, right? He hates him, so he's going to find any excuse he can to blame him for something or try to catch him in something or whatever. Now, at this point forward, when you compare previously, let me see, I'm trying to see where again, my notes, sorry. Here we go. The inking is getting, in my opinion, simplified. So if we go back just a little bit again to this page, this is probably some of the highlights. These faces, the rendering, the lighting is awesome. The inking here is really good. I really like everything, whether it's the thick organic lines or you have these more hard edge technology lines from the ship. It's all really good. Now when we get down to here, I mean, you can see like it's a little wonky on some of the shading on Dr. Banner's face. And then this, like, General Ross face looks very cartoony, very quick. It's just a couple lines here and there. Now, I know the panel isn't very big, but it's no smaller than I think what we saw before with the Hulk. And but you just have like a couple little dashes for hair. The shading, there's no, other than on the phone, there's no real shadows. So we don't really see, like, why isn't his arm casting a shadow down on him? Why don't we see shading under his neck? It just seems like all of a sudden it's much quicker. Now we are quite a ways through the book, and sometimes this might happen depending on how you work. Some people will work from page 1 to page whatever, 22, 28, whatever the page count is, and they'll work in sequence. Personally, that's how I like to work. That way I can always refer back to what I did on page 1 and make sure it matches up with what's on page 21. Other people will work out of sequence, so that the idea is sometimes at the end you're working really hard. You're putting in a lot of hours. You're working, especially here at Marvel, artists like Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, working multiple books at a time. You might be running out of steam or running out of energy towards the end of the book. And I think that's kind of what's happening. Like, this woman's face is very, again, simple, plain. You have a couple of swishes for hair that indicate her hair. Compared to earlier work, it just doesn't, in the, I say earlier work, I mean earlier pages in this book, it doesn't match up. I mean, we could see, like look at here, like, this is Dr. Banner just looking out of the window at the Earth, and look at the rendering, the way the hair is shaded. It's really, really nice. Even like this image of Betty here, and the way her hair is rendered out with shading to give us form and volume, the line work of her face, stuff like that. General Ross here, even though this is the same size panel, we get much more definition in his nose, the mustache, how his face, is put together. You get to here, and it looks like it's kind of dashed out. So I'm not super thrilled with the art as we move forward. There's still some highlights, but it looks like things sort of, the energy or the momentum kind of gets lessons. Example, this page here. So the king of the Toadmen is telling him what's going to happen. They're going to use their magnetic weapons to push the moon into the Earth. So he talks about the tides. He talks about the two colliding. There's nothing they can do. They're causing flooding. They're causing earthquakes. You can see how quick some of this inking is. Big shadows, chunky areas, just dashes of black to indicate bricks and lines, as opposed to some of the earlier rendering that we saw. I'd be very interested to know. I don't know. So when I looked up the credits, obviously I know that Steve Ditko was the inker. There's also nothing that says he inked every single page of this book. So it's very possible that maybe after a certain point, maybe Jack Kirby inked some of these, or somebody else inked a page here or there. Again, back in the day when you had to get a comic book to the printer so that it could be on the newsstands every month, it was all hands on deck. So, this is a great example right here. So Banner transforms again into the Hulk once night comes, and look at this face. So the drawing is still there. The shape of the face, the heavy eyebrows and dark shadows over the eyes, the wrinkly forehead, the short nose and the large gap of the upper lip. And so that's all there. But I mean, if you compare that face there and the inking style. So we know the size of this panel. This is probably 3x5. All right. So now let's back it up just a little. Oops. I want to keep zoomed in some, right? These are the same size panels, probably 3x5. Here's another. This one is 3x5. I know it's more of a close up, but maybe this is another 3x5 panel. And look at the difference in the inking and the rendering and what we're bringing to this character, and how how he is looking. Again, more of that horror monster kind of view. And then a couple pages later, we get this. So clearly, we're seeing there's a decline somewhere. Put it that way. Let's see here. And then I love this pose. This is great. So he rips up the Hulk, breaks out of prison, rips up a railroad track, and uses it like a jousting spear, jousting lance, and sticks it into the barrel of the artillery, and then flips the cannon over. I think that's fantastic. And this pose of the foreshortening of the rail, the twisted rail coming at you, the Hulk literally off the ground. It's very cartoony, but it really does sell the speed and effort that he's charging you with. So it's one of those things where, yes, it could be straight out of a Tom and Jerry cartoon or a Roadrunner cartoon. The character starts running and their feet are off the ground, but we all react to it. We understand this means fast. He's coming fast and powerful. And then this image of him flipping the artillery cannon over, that's just an amazing Jack Kirby pose. Like, this could be The Thing. This could be any of the, monsters that he drew. This could be, Thor flipping something over. But this pose to me just screamed Jack Kirby. It's the kind of thing we would have seen in plenty of other of his early Marvel comics. So great stuff there. We get a little bit closer to what we saw before, but again, it's just a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? The ink lines are a little thicker. It's like trying to replicate that really nice detailed line work that we saw before. It's not quite pulling it off. And I don't know what it is. This hand over here, very blocky, very thick. Again, it's in the foreground, so the ink line should be thicker than anything of Betty inside the door or window or whatever it is we're looking through here. But it just screams, fast. It just real chunky. I find this funny. The Hulk is walking, so he wants to destroy General Ross, and he walks like Frankenstein. The stiff-leggedness, even though he's running here all crouched over, when he walks, his arms sort of go out forward. Again, really re-emphasizing the monster, the very Frankenstein appearance. And then, of course, right, like Frankenstein, he goes, finds the girl, and she's afraid of him when he comes in. Let's see here. And then, yeah. So the military know that he's there. He fends them off a little bit. And now we have this big standoff between the military, the tank, the Hulk, and of course, Betty's in the way. So we have to be careful there. Let's zoom out one more. So now the people have to try to take him by hand because, again, we don't want to hurt the civilians, and he shrugs them off. Again, it's okay, but when you look at if you look at the first issue where we talked about last week, there's an image of the Hulk standing his ground when he first transforms, and a car hitting him, and people going flying in all directions. And it's amazing. Here, these figures being shrugged off the Hulk are so stiff. There's no bend to the spine. They bend at the waist, maybe, or they're straight. I mean, I guess you could say he's flinging them off. But let's just compare very quickly. Look at, it's very small, but look at this panel here where these guys are being, flung off as he's tossing the artillery. They're also fairly stiff, but it really works because they're trying to hang on to that device, to the artillery cannon and stuff. they're being thrown off in a much more, I don't know, energetic way, I guess. To me, it was okay, but this panel just doesn't sell it for me. One, the Hulk isn't really moving. His arms are in tight. His legs are spread, which is fine, but I'd like to see one arm flailed up, maybe the trunk twisted to show that he's moving to throw these guys off and not just going blah, blah, like that. Now, I get it. He's super strong. The next panel, he lifts up the side of a house with a hand. He doesn't have to flail around to throw guys off, but you're selling motion in a static image. You've got to have motion. So, and we're missing it. Here, right above, there's some good stuff. This guy bent in half. The Hulk's grabbing him. His helmet's falling off. He's bent in half. There's, this guy's jumping in, trying to butt him with a rifle. This guy's getting ready to try to throw a punch. There's legs and arms all over. This is pretty interesting. What should be the bigger energy shot of him, the Hulk shaking these guys off, isn't. It's less energy than up above. That doesn't work. There's Rick running on the bottom panel again. We talked about that a lot. This I thought was nice, even though, again, the inking isn't as good as we could have seen. We missed some opportunity. I do like as the Hulk slowly advances on Betty, explaining why he hates mankind because they hate him, so that as he's getting closer and closer, that sense of menace is really, really nice. So that's great storytelling there. But we missed an opportunity to take something like that splash page on page 1 and render this close up that well. Like I definitely, for me personally, I would have rendered the heck out of this. You would have seen the start of the divot, in the upper lip there as it extends from the nose. I would have even gone in and started to do, there's little like radiating lines in your eye, in the iris of your eye, the colored part of your eye. I would be rendering in some of those, more wrinkles, stuff like that. This is a great opportunity to do it. It's a small panel, so it wouldn't take a long time, but we've seen it. We saw it on the splash page, and we're really missing it here. This is, again, an attempt, and unfortunately, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me because the lighting doesn't make sense. You've got characters like Betty and Rick who are well lit, and then you're trying to show that the Hulk is being lit by sort of this top left light. So it's leaving most of his head under his cheeks, his bottom lip and chin, all that's in shadow. So that light has to be coming from the left this way, but it doesn't really match up with Betty and Rick and the lighting that they're in. So I get what you're trying to do, but it doesn't necessarily work. Then because of what's going on with the moon, it knocks everybody for a loop, and when the sun comes up, Dr. Banner is back to being Dr. Banner. So he realizes he's going to use what he uses a ton. As we go through the series, you'll see this often. What does Dr. Banner know? He knows gamma rays. He built a gamma bomb. He knows what gamma rays can do. So apparently, not only did he build a gamma bomb, he built a gamma ray gun. And so the bomb, obviously it made a Hulk. And so he's gone ahead and made much more gamma weaponry, which total sense. But I do like the design of this gun. The perspective is very nice. The foreshortening, it's this large mechanical object coming to you. None of it makes sense. It's just circles, cylinders, lines, ridges, but all that, when you put it all together, just looks really cool. It looks very sci-fi, very advanced kind of stuff. So we buy the fact that it's a kind of a weapon we've never seen before. But again, really nice stuff. Jack Kirby does tech in a way that nobody else does or has done since. You can see some of this stuff when you see Galactus in the Fantastic Four, his ship, or stuff like that. You're like, yep, that is a Jack Kirby machine all the way. And I love it. I noted here, Gamma makes problems, Gamma solves problems. So the gamma rays turned you into the Hulk. We don't know what they would do to other people. Maybe they turn everybody into Hulk. Who knows? Into a Hulk. But we have a giant ray gun. What would you be doing with that giant ray gun other than, in this case, shooting a space armada with it? And if you have a giant gamma ray gun that can shoot into space, at this point, again, what are you doing with it? Why aren't we, why isn't the U.S. military taking over the world or destroying its enemies or stopping whatever? It works, and the world knows that, because they talk about it like, oh yeah, Betty's like, I told you we could trust Bruce. And okay, so he stopped an alien invasion with a gamma gun. What else are you going to do with that gamma gun? Kind of wacky. And then I did note as well, I really like this guy's face for some reason. There's something about the way his hat and the way his eyes are, this like intense lunatic grin on his face and the double chins. There was just something as a background character I just really liked. I thought he was really, I'll get in real close. I just thought this guy was super funny. Again, no idea why. I just really liked him as a background character. And then there we go. And then we have, down at the end, we end on kind of a down note as Rick has finally locked the Hulk into their underground base. And the Hulk is pounding away on the walls trying to get out. And this will be, their nightly ritual. And it's kind of depressing that now this is their life. Every night, Rick has to be this watcher for the Hulk to make sure he doesn't break out and cause problems. So it's kind of a bummer. But yeah, that's the end of the book, and that is the end of Hulk number 2. So we're going to jump back to the desk here and wrap things up. So that is Hulk number 2. Again, super fun issue. There's obviously some problems that I have with, as it goes on, the art quality, I think, starts to degrade a little bit. So whether that's they had more time in the beginning or more energy or whatever, maybe there's, again, more hands inking than I'm aware of. I don't know. But it's the difference between page 1 and page 30 is, and again, when I on my notes, I number the pages, but I count everything, including the ads. So, it ends on page 30. The artwork definitely dips. So that's going to take a hit for me. I thought the Toadman of Croak was a funny bit. I don't understand the magnetism. Magnetism can do anything you want. It can help you tunnel underground. It can cause people's feet to be rooted to the ground. And it can somehow deduct who is the smartest person on Earth. Amazing stuff. Very funny parts of it. So I would give this a nice 7 out of 10 on my rating system. Good issue. Wonderful example to see Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby collaborating in a way that we didn't see a ton of in the early days, right? Typically they were working on separate books. So very nice to see that, and a comic I really enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed it as well, and I hope you're enjoying this series. Again, if you're a subscriber, thank you so much. If you're not, please consider subscribing. These do come out weekly, and then if you're new, think about checking out my Amazing Spider-Man series as well. We have, I think it's up to episode 59. So we've got couple over a year's worth of episodes there you can look at. In the meantime, we're getting started on this new Hulk series, and I'm very excited about it, and I hope you are too. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week with more Incredible Hulk. Thanks.